I have with me in the studio Mr. Godswill Mrakbo, who is a legal practitioner. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you.
Well, you have heard some of the complaints by the senators there. I mean, people are definitely worried about what they think is the rising insecurity in the country. Interestingly, this is not the first time this matter of insecurity has come up in Nigeria. There are times when it looks like, you know, the gates of hell are let loose and all the bandits are out. But at other times it does look like, well, we're just facing the normal challenges of a developing country. However, we've heard over and over again from some quarters, and you heard the Senator Adeyeye there saying that, you know, the Constitution can never give us progress and security. What is your take as a lawyer on that?
Thank you for having me in your studios this morning. We've all listened to Senator Adeyeye. Been watching him for the past 1 week with those comments, been all over the internet and all of that. I'm inclined to agree with him that the Constitution can give us peace. The Constitution cannot give us progress. And the reason why I agree with him is that the Constitution as it is actually a fraud on the Nigerian people. It's a lie to the Nigerian people. The Constitution is not the document of the Nigerian people. The Constitution is supposed to be the contract that binds the people with the government. A Constitution is like a transaction, it's a transaction between two businessmen. When two business people want to go into a transaction, they write an agreement, they have a contract, and the contract defines the role, the responsibilities, and the duties of all the players in that contract. That is exactly what a constitution is in terms of governance. It's a contract between the governor and the governed, the people and their leaders. That's what the constitution is.
You've heard those who say that, I mean, yes, we've heard those who say the Nigerian people were not consulted when this 1999 Constitution was written. But we've heard two arguments to counter that. We've heard the argument that, oh, the 1999 Constitution is not entirely different from the 1979 Constitution. It's just adjusted in places, in some places. And the 1979 Constitution had the Constituent Assembly that starts to write it. So did we really need another Constituent Assembly? And then some other people argue and say that, you know, it was Nigerians who wrote this Constitution. Yes, they were wearing military uniforms or they got some, you know, eminent Nigerians to write it. And yes, we did not put our imprimatur on it, but they were Nigerians who wrote it. It didn't fall from heaven, or we didn't have foreigners write it for us. Is that really the basis upon which we say that this is a problem with the Constitution?
Yes, it is. It is a basis. It is Nigerians that wrote it. You'll be surprised to know the American Constitution was written by just one person. Benjamin Franklin wrote the American Constitution. But today it's governing the whole of the United States of America. What happens is that when you are making Constitution, the people must have their input in the making of the Constitution. The document could be written by one person who was an expert in law, knows how to write this thing, but it has to be adopted, it has to be ratified by the people. In the case of the American Constitution, if you recall, maybe a student of history, you found out that there were 13 states that formed the United States of America. Now, that document was prepared by Benjamin Franklin. On the urgings of Benjamin Franklin as well, he convened the Assembly of the People, and they all adopted and ratified the American Constitution. In the case of Nigeria, it has never been like that. Nigerian case, we've always have our Constitution handed over to us by the masters. Right from independence, our first Constitution, the Independence Constitution, was a product of Order in Council, British Order in Council. It was the British that wrote it, and they made an order, and it came into effect by the British Order in Council. The 1999 Constitution came into effect by Decree 24 of Abu Salam that made it. That's how it came into it. The same thing with the 1979 Constitution. So there has never been a time that Nigerians have been consulted on what they want to be contained in their Constitution. I give you a very good example in the America. We always cite America because America is more like the beacon of democracy in the world. In the case of the American Constitution, when about, I think 11 or so states have already signed, it was remaining Rhode Island. They refused to sign. The reason why they refused to sign is that they were saying that you cannot abolish slavery because slavery is a part of our economy, that you cannot be in charge of the currency. Currency should be localized. I should have my own currency. It shouldn't be one United States dollars. Those were the issues that were conversing. But eventually, they were able to have a referendum, and then it was adopted, and then it became the constitution of the people of the United States. In the case of Nigeria, nobody consults anybody. Just like Senator Adeyeye was saying, we have 68 items on the exclusive list, including policing, which is a local affair. And then where you have just some few items in the concurrent list. And even those few items in the concurrent list, if you read it properly, you find out that it's all been given to the exclusive list because the center has power over them. So the point is that before you can say that the Constitution is a document of Nigerians, even though it is drafted by Constituent Assembly or by one person or by a few group of people, it has to be tabled to the Nigerian people for them to be able to say, okay, they will take it item by item. These 68 items in the exclusive list, should they be in the exclusive list? There need to be a referendum.
You know, I'm glad that you're beginning to narrow down on the reasons why, you know, we might be getting this, the reference to the Constitution. Because some people will say, is it because the bandits are not reading the Constitution? That's why they're attacking Nigerians. But, you know, that's on the side.
That's right.
They're wondering what the connection is. And I think that that's when we begin to talk about exclusive list and, you know, concurrent list. Because if you say that the problem lies with the Constitution, what exactly is the problem with the Constitution that is now affecting our security?
That is it. Let me give item 45 on the exclusive list. Talks about policing. Policing has to be exclusively a federal affair. But it can't work that way. Policing has to be a local affair. I am here now in this studio. I'm giving an interview. My family is at home. I don't know what my kids are up to. I don't know what is going on in my house. So if I say that I will be in charge of the security of my house while I'm here, it won't work. I need to have somebody at home. My gate man needs to be on duty to be able to take care of local police. My family, the adults that are home, they need to be in charge to take care of security challenges that are local. That is what we're saying, that in the drafting of the Constitution, Nigerians ought to be consulted. Whether policing should be on the exclusive list or it should be on the concurrent list. Nigerians were never consulted. They just handed it over down to Nigerians.
But how does it really make a difference? I mean, yes, you have police at the federal level. The inspector, there's only one Inspector General of Police, but he's got DIGs, he's got state commissioners of police, he's got a number, you know, he's got people at different levels who are doing different jobs. In fact, we're not just about policing right now, even though we know that the police is supposed to be the primary beacon for security, but we also have a number of other agencies that are now involved in providing security for Nigerians. We have the NSCDC. In some instances, even the military is involved in providing security. The DSS is there. And still, we still have these cases of insecurity going rife. Is that the Constitution's problem?
Yeah, that's the problem, because the security issue is not localized. I will still take you back to US again. If you look at the US, they have their own policing system. They have the local police. We have the county sheriff, who is in charge of the locality. You have the FBI, who is in charge of the national. We have the CIA. We have different, all of them have their jurisdictions and their powers spelled out to them. There are issues, there are crimes that are crossing across state. That is a federal affair. No state police can be in charge. But when you talk of the local crimes, those bandits are local, they are local people. Now, you expect a commissioner of police that's probably posted to maybe Zamfara, maybe probably a month ago, and that might be his first time in Zamfara. He doesn't have a knowledge of the nook and crannies of where the bandits hide. So there's no way he can effectively police that area. But if that place, if the security of that area were to be the locals themselves that were in charge of the security of the area, they don't need to get clearance from headquarters before they take any decision. They have their jurisdiction spelled out by law. They have their powers defined by law. They don't need to consult with Abuja before they take a decision. When they are confronted with a challenge, they'll be able to address it. So,
Mr. Marco, we might not have a perfect situation in terms of our Constitution. I mean, some people have argued that it is in terms of how we practiced what is in our Constitution rather than the contents of the Constitution itself. Some argue that in spite of the so-called defective Constitution, that a number of states seem to be doing better than others where security is concerned. It's a question of priority. What a state governor, for instance, prioritizes. Do you agree with them?
Yeah, to some extent, because ultimately, even if you have the best laws, if they are not implemented, there's no way you can even achieve anything. But we are saying that we cannot just brush that aside and look at and brush the defects in the constitution aside. Good and fine. Implementation is very important, and that's another problem in this country. We have people committing offenses and they walk away with impunity. The enforcement of even the bad laws that we have, if they can even enforce the bad laws that we have, I'm sure there will be some progress, but even that is another problem. We have issues where people commit offenses and they walk away with it. The enforcement, the implementation of our laws are very weak. Our prosecuting agencies, they are not well equipped. They are not empowered to tackle the challenges. You have a situation whereby the criminals, they have access to, how do I want to put it, to judicial power than even the government itself. You have a situation whereby people are able to muster resources to be able to tackle the state in terms of fighting corruption, fighting crime, and in terms of upholding the law. It's supposed to be the other way around. The state is supposed to be mighty. That is the essence of government. Because if people are left on their own, you find a situation whereby the powerful will oppress the weak. It is because of that that people say, okay, let us collectively give up our rights. Let's give up our power to donate it to the state. So the state becomes very powerful. And the essence of the power of the state is to protect the weak. But in Nigeria, it is the other way around. So this is the challenges. Implementations were very poor. But even our laws themselves, they need to be revisited. The constitution does not belong to Nigeria. It is handed over to Nigeria. It is not a document of the people. It's not for the people. It's not by the people.
You know, some people will also say, should a senator say, Senator Adeyeye has said it in very strong terms, how he feels about the Nigerian constitution. However, when you look at the fact that this is a constitution that they swore to defend, should you really hear things like that from senators?
Well, yeah, they swore to defend the constitution, but does not mean that you swore to defend something. Does not mean that if you discover a defect in that thing, you should not point it out. That would be contrary to morality.
Is that defending? Is that in the defense? I mean, you can't defend something and say that that thing you're defending is still defective. Can you?
Yeah, you could do that. Because in itself, like I said earlier on, the constitution tells a lie against itself. The constitution that was made by Abu Salam by Decree 24 goes ahead and says that we, the people of Nigeria. So that is telling a lie on itself. So if a senator has sworn to uphold the constitution, it also swore to uphold that section 1 of the constitution that says we, the people of the Nigeria, because sovereignty belongs to the people. So if he had seen that there are things in the constitution that negates that principle of we, the people, then I think his moral obligation and his duty is to respond to the needs of the people. So by bringing out the defects in the constitution, I think it's also upholding the constitution.
Don't you think it erodes the confidence? Because some of the things that we see, doesn't this erode the confidence that Nigerians are supposed to have in their constitution as the grand norm of the land? When we now hear that this grand norm cannot protect us, in fact, it's a lie. In fact, it is so defective that it is the cause of our insecurity. It is the cause of the fact that we don't have peace, we might not have prosperity. Does it not erode the confidence of people in their country?
Well, it does, but the thing is that Nigerians do not even have confidence in the constitution because this is not their document. They have never owned it. Let me shock you one bit. Do you know that there's no provision for referendum in the constitution? Referendum is only mentioned, I think, about 4 times in the constitution. When you want to create state, when you want to create local government, when you want to recall a member. And even the referendum itself is still subject to Senate approval, whereas it's supposed to be the other way around. When the Senate has, maybe they want to alter the constitution, they want to amend the constitution, they're supposed to take it to the people by way of referendum. Referendum, which is the power of the people, is not in the Nigerian constitution. There's no provision in the Nigerian constitution for the people to be consulted on any issue at all. In normal systems, when a constitution is to be amended, After the assembly, after the executive, after they've done all their inputs and they make their input, you submit it to the people by way of referendum. The power of the provision of referendum has been taken out of the 1999 Constitution. There's no referendum, there's no consultation of the people in anything at all. So the people do not even have, I am a Nigerian, I don't have confidence in the Constitution. And if you consult...
And you're a lawyer, too.
Yes, I'm a lawyer. I don't have confidence because it is not my document. I am a Nigerian. I have no input. There are certain things that are in the Constitution that I would not want to be there. But nobody consulted me.
You know that some lawmakers, I know that this is not the first time, we've seen several attempts at constitutional amendment in this country. In some instances, yes, indeed, there is no mention of a referendum for, adjusting the Constitution or amending the Constitution. However, we found that lawmakers have found a way around that. Some of them, do this very elaborate town hall meetings, consultations with their constituents to find out what it is they want amended. At least even if there is no room for Nigerians to be directly involved in the process, the lawmakers themselves who claim to represent the interests of the people can find out what precisely their people want and ensure that those amendments are made. Would that be such an impossible scenario?
Yeah. You see, it still boils down to the same master-servant relationship with Nigeria has been from colonial times. It's still the same. Give them, this is what is good for them. You don't need to ask them. This is what is good for them.
How? I mean, because we saw in the 7th Assembly, I think it was during the time of Speaker Tambuwal, I still remember, where members went back to their constituencies, came back with huge amounts of, documents saying that this is what our people say they want in the Constitution. There were conferences held, town hall meetings held. How is that still giving the people what we think they need, not what the people are saying they want?
This is why it is so. That process ought to be the final seal on anything that should become law in Nigeria. That process of going to the people. But what they've done now is put the cart before the horse. They've gone to the people, get what the people want to say, and then they remove the ones that doesn't suit them. It's still the master-servant situation. They remove what they don't like, and then they pass it into law. Ordinarily, it should be the experts, the legislator, they should be the one that should prepare the document first before submitting it to the people. The referendum, the final verification or ratification should be the final seal. It's the people that should come last that say, this is what we want. You don't go and get opinion from people and then you come tinker with it. It's no longer the people's document. That's the position I'm making. The people, the referendum should be the last stage in any constitution making process. If it is not like that, then it's an illegal document.
What precisely are we looking to tinker in this constitution that we think will eventually put us on the path to security, peace, and progress? What precisely are we looking to tinker with?
Well, generally speaking, in terms of the security, I think that needs to be localized. In terms of resources, that needs to be localized. If you look at Nigeria today, there's no drive in any of the states for revenue generation because everything is in the center. Unlike in the early days of Nigeria, probably in the early 60s, where the power were in the regions, the economic drive were in the regions. You see the competitions among the three regions then. You see people, you see the West, they will set up a university, Obafemi University of Ibadan. Did not take it as a challenge, sets up Ahmadu Bello University. The East takes it as a challenge, sets up the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. They set up a TV station in the West. These people take it as a challenge. So there was competition. The North, they were growing their groundnuts, cottons, hides, and skin. They were feeding the country then. The South, they were doing their own. The East, they were doing their own. There was competition. All that has been taken away because we have a system where everything is concentrated in the center. That needs to be addressed. You need to release economic power to the people so that the people do not have to look up to the center for them to be able to survive. What the center should be doing in terms of maybe defense, external security, protecting the territorial integrity, relations with foreign countries, that's what they do. But in terms of how much should be paid to this person, what is the salary of, what should be the salary of worker, that should not be the business, that is exclusively, it shouldn't be the business of the center. The local people should be able to take care of how much should be the salary of a worker of area. Because, for example, if you look at the cost of living in Abuja, you can't compare that with the cost of living in Benin. in Abuja today, an apartment will cost so and so amount of money. The same type of apartment, or even better than that, will cost cheaper in other localities. If you pay the people the same salary, probably the salary of the person living in Abuja, all his salary will go into house rent. So you can't do that. Everything has to be localized. That is what we're saying, that you need to devolve power to the localities, so that they will be able to determine their future, and then competition will come in, and then you see prosperity. This is the reason why we are not making progress. These are some of the areas that they need to tinker with in the Constitution. And it is the people that should decide. Because when the people take a decision, when they are a part of it, you find out that they will embrace it. They will make it to work. But because you don't consult them, you just hand it over to them. Today, there are some lawyers in Nigeria today that don't even know that the Constitution has been amended 4 times. Most lawyers don't even know that. And I'm talking of lawyers, not talk of the ordinary citizen. Ordinarily, it should be the people. Before you amend the Constitution, you must consult the people. That want to make a first alteration, want to make a second alteration, up to a 4th alteration. They do it secretly. Before you know it, they say the Constitution has been amended. That is not the way things are done. You need to carry the people along. When the people are carried along, it becomes their document. It becomes their Constitution. They will fight to make sure that it works.
But definitely a long way off from getting the people involved. I mean, we've seen several cries way before now to try and get the Constitution to be that of the people. So we've been saying constitutional conference is set up. We've seen a number of them. I think the latest was the 2014
That's
constitutional conference set up by President Goodluck Jonathan. However, you know, that document too has been abandoned. We saw, you know, promises from the APC about restructuring, so to speak. And then we also saw them set up a committee. We don't know what became of the documents from that particular committee. But what do you think will eventually put to rest these agitations for a new constitution or a constitution that reflects the will of the people? How do you think we should go about this now? Because it was in that every path that might be taken now might be greeted with some amount of suspicion.
Yeah, it's just like what Senator Adeyeye was saying, that the unfortunate thing is that the people at the assembly will not have the spine to do what needs to be done. Now, the fact that I'm saying that the Constitution has defects and all of that, it is still our law, because there must be law and order in society. Otherwise, what you have is anarchy. So we are still bound by Decree 24, which gave birth to the Constitution. So we are still bound to abide by it and to obey it. But what I think can be done is that, just like people like the distinguished Senator Adeyeye has pointed out, those are the kind of people, the National Assembly, which is like maybe not too perfect, but at least it's also a representation of the Nigerian people as it is. Even though how they came about is not, it came through an imperfect document, which is the Constitution, and also an imperfect process. But they are the best we have now, and so we will have to live with that. But I think that we need patriots among them to be able to come out and point out these defects. They can come out with a better document, which will ensure that there is justice and there is peace in this country. And they can also make sure that the Constitution is amended so that the power of the people is returned to the people. That key issue of referendum that I mentioned, referendum that has been taken away, the ability of the people to say what they want, it needs to be returned into the Constitution, so that major issues can be from time to time taken to the people. In Nigeria, the only time that the government have interaction with the people is every 4 years when there's election. But it ought not to be so. When there are major issues like this, for example, there's the issue of the Zamfara, what needs to be done, it can be taken to the people for them to decide, what do you want to be done? These are the issues. So the power, first, what I think needs to be done is that the patriots among the National Assembly, they need to be ensure that the power of referendum is back into the Constitution so that the people can exercise their power. When that is done, when there is participation of the people, you will find out that because without the cooperation of the people, there's no way any government can succeed. The people need to be involved because it is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. It is their business. You are just there as a caretaker. The real owners of the business of the state is the people. So they need to be part of the process. And I think one fundamental thing is that referendum that I mentioned. They need to restore that power back into the Constitution.
It's definitely a fine place to live it. We have to thank you very kindly for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Mr. Godzo Rakpo is a legal practitioner. He's been speaking to us here in our Abuja studios.